Neil Marshall's The Descent is an excellent horror thriller that manages to stand the test of time because of its strong claustrophobic feelings of dread and despair. We all have that innate want to go on adventures with our friends, but what happens when you and said friends decide to explore a cave, get trapped, and then realize you're not alone? This movie is bloody and it's gory, so many horror fans will probably enjoy that piece, but its true excellence is in its setup of expectations and surprises. The human drama showcases what true horror can actually be within a horrible situation. I highly recommend this film for anyone who hasn't seen it before. It mixes creature feature with survival horror really well, and that ending is a work of art. The Orphanage is so much more than just a horror movie. Also known as El Orfanato, it's a Spanish horror film that evokes a dreamlike atmosphere that devolves into an absolute nightmare. While showcasing heavy themes of loss, it still weaves a creepy story about creepy kids, but it also talks about the ghosts that we leave behind. The acting is phenomenal, and though it has some horror elements, at its core, it's a tragic but sweet story about love and found family. This is definitely worth your time. There are so many elements that work for me in Scott Derrickson's Sinister. It has a true crime background, there's a found footage aspect, the mystery is enticing, there's a supernatural angle, and Ethan Hawke is in it. Sinister is part of a new wave of modern horror that is filled with gruesome imagery and excellent sound design. It's one of those movies that just crawls under your skin. In fact, it has one of the greatest and scariest jump scares I have ever seen. Watch it in the dark. It adds to the overall feeling of dread. But maybe don't watch it if you have a heart condition. This is an excellent horror film. The Hills Have Eyes remake is not for casual viewers. If you like your horror fast-paced, disgusting, and disturbing, well then this family road trip movie might be just for you. Be warned, there are some stomach-turning scenes and the content can be very graphic. But what I really like about this movie is the switch in power dynamics toward the last part of the film. With murderous mutants around every corner, what are you willing to do to protect your family? There's definitely some get hype moments that are super rewarding, and if you like this, I highly recommend Wes Craven's 1977 original classic. This isn't for the weak of heart, and it's a great film. A bunch of bros go on a hike through the Scandinavian wilderness. What could possibly go wrong? Well, everything. And this is the basic story to David Bruckner's British horror, The Ritual. This is a personal favorite movie of mine because its cast is believable and the batshit crazy horrors it presents are insane. The escalation of events is gradual, but when it picks up, the insanity does not stop. A familiar story that goes terribly wrong, Rafe Spall has a standout performance, and his uneasiness is so relatable. You could put yourself in his shoes as he basically has to survive everything going on around him. You want him to win against the ancient evils that are hunting him down. This is one of the better Netflix original horror films, and it's a standout in true horror. I highly recommend this film. The 2019 Child's Play is a fun and clever reinvention of the 80s classic horror. Less about soul transferring voodoo rituals and more about the dangers of artificial intelligence, this modernization makes this movie more of its own thing and less like a part of Don Mancini's Chucky franchise. But I think that this is a good thing. With a likable cast of child actors and the ever awesome Aubrey Plaza, it's fun to watch. Hell, the fact that Chucky is voiced by the iconic Mark Hamill is within itself really, really cool. With its gruesome horror and its excellent music, this movie wasn't afraid to make fun of itself and to be over the top. I do think it's a hidden gem of a film, so you guys should definitely check it out. What happens when three tourists are kidnapped by a deranged German surgeon who has an affinity for creating something truly obscene? Well, this is the plot to The Human Centipede. And it's a Dutch body horror film that is better in concept than an actual depiction. But what can I say about The Human Centipede? Well, first of all, it's definitely not for everyone. While it does have some great horror moments and elements, I think it ultimately fails because it focuses too much on repulsing and grossing out and shocking its audience. And that's way too overwhelming for the actual story. It's not for the squeamish, but I do think that everyone should watch it at least once so you kind of see what people are talking about. It's a wild and absurd experience for sure. As Above, So Below is a personal favorite. A little bit reminiscent of both The Descent meets National Treasure, it has some downright creepy and unsettling moments. More importantly, it also feels genuine and authentic considering that the film was shot in the underground catacombs of Paris. While most found footage horror films seem very cliched, I felt like this movie does a great job of increasing the stakes with its bombastic scares and lore. All in all, it's Perdita Weeks, who is so dynamic and likable as the archaeologist Scarlet, that really makes me love this film. I've watched it many times, and sometimes I just have it on in the background. Her journey is intense, and you just want to see her succeed. I highly recommend this horror gem. 13 Ghosts is a movie that haunted both myself and my two little sisters when we were kids. I remember renting it from Blockbuster again and again, just because it felt so taboo to watch. It scared the shit out of us, and it was something that I always kind of went back to, just because of like the macabre feeling. Both its disturbing imagery and its detailed lore, I think, still hold up in this rewatch. And even though there's pieces of it that are still kind of like outplayed by today's standards, I do think that there's some really good gore aesthetics, some really good horror aesthetics, and it's just a haunted house movie, but kind of updated to like the early 2001 era. Matthew Lillard is great. I love that character. Always get sad about what happens to him at the end. Spoilers. The ghosts are still scary as hell, and Tony Shalhoub is my spirit animal. This movie, I love 13 Ghosts. It's one of those pleasures that I have. I can't help it. Hopefully you enjoy it as well. Colette Sarah's horror thriller Orphan is such an interesting film with an interesting blacklight aesthetic that I was not expecting. It plays on such a bizarre concept and a fear that I never thought that I could possibly have. A story about broken families and exploitative people. It builds some amazing tension, and that twist is exactly why I go to the movies. It was wild. On top of all that, Isabel Fuhrman was a phenomenal child actor. Her portrayal of Esther was equal parts chilling and believable. Now I just want to see her fight Macaulay Culkin from The Good Son. Overall, this movie just reminded me that if Vera Farmiga tells you something is wrong with your kid, you listen to her. I've seen The Conjuring. Nothing brings me greater joy than watching John Carpenter's The Thing. No matter how many times I rewatch it, I always find something to really enjoy and appreciate. It's the full package of what a great horror film can be. It has a great cast, it has perfect paranoia, there's perfect practical effects, and it has the most nightmarish thing I have ever seen on screen. A bunch of researchers in Antarctica are hunted by a shape-shifting extraterrestrial organism, and chaos ensues. So just the concept of the film is enough to make me want to re-experience it again and again. It is a true body horror masterpiece, and everyone needs to watch this movie at least once in their life. I know that What We Do in the Shadows isn't a horror movie, and we are doing the 31 Days of Horror, but it's my list, and I could not keep this off the list because it is a fantastic comedic Halloween type movie. When you really break it down, I'd argue that this movie is this generation's greatest comedic achievement, and I don't say that lightly because it is surprisingly incredibly funny. But what do you expect when you have a bunch of amazing New Zealand actors and directors giving us this dry, witty, and random humor? When you really break it down, what this movie is, it is a mockumentary. It's basically a documentary crew comes in and they're looking at the seedy underbelly or just the zany randomness of a bunch of vampires who are roommates. And I think it's so funny because they put themselves into these situations that are just hilarious. This is a movie that I recommend everybody watch because it's so good and it's done so well. The TV show that it's based off of is also really good, and I think we can all agree that the best part of this film is Stu. Stu is amazing. Green Room is, in a word, intense. For anyone who's ever been in a band or has, toured in those seedy places, those house shows that just seem sketch, this might seem a little bit too familiar and might hit a little bit too close to home. Green Room is a 2015 American horror thriller, and it focuses on a punk band who find themselves in a terrible situation, pissing off a lot of neo-Nazi skinheads. I wasn't expecting this movie to be as intense or as gruesome as it actually is, and I can honestly say that the late Anton Yelchin plays a fantastic main character, and Patrick Stewart goes full-on villain in a way that you would never expect. I don't think that enough people have actually watched this movie, so you should definitely give it a view. It is definitely worth your time. More personal than the Blair Witch Project and a little bit more endearing than the Paranormal Activity films, Grave Encounters comes in and showcases exactly why people like BuzzFeed Unsolved and other ghost file type shows can be successful, because we all want to see if ghosts are actually real. Well, this is another one of those found footage type films focusing on a team that are creating a television program called Grave Encounters, and they're doing that, they're looking for ghosts. But what happens is the whole movie is kind of taught in a way where it feels like it's very believable. They kind of pitch it as a lost found footage movie that actually happened. And I think the marketing does a really good job of trying to convince you that this is not just a movie. I love this film for so many different reasons. The believable scares are really good, and the cast are people that I can see myself within. So this is definitely one you want to check out. While Sam Raimi's original Evil Dead is a classic in its own terms, the 2013 reimagining is a brutal, nasty terror. I really like how it's a relentless gore fest, but on top of that, it's your typical cabin in the woods type story, and I think that adds a lot to it. If you like your horror of the devil possession variety, then this is definitely the horror show for you. And it's less comical, but it's just as absurd with its violent and abhorrent and disturbing material. If you want to watch a movie that's gonna fucking make you maybe want to throw up, this is the one for you. Feast on this movie. It's worth your time. Dario Argento's Suspiria is a work of art. Not only is it one of my favorite horror films, but it's one of my favorite movies of all time. No matter how many times I watch it, I am always taken aback at how colorful and how grand it all feels. It isn't so much a horror movie as much as it's a dark fairy tale. The rich color palette, highlighted with its extravagant interior designs, creates an unsettling film bathed in technicolor. And on top of all that, the sound design is brought to us by the Italian prog rock band Goblin, which makes the whole viewing experience all that much more unsettling, but in a good way. I love this movie. Fright Night is just cool, man. I mean, it's endlessly rewatchable because it's so much damn fun. The film is interesting because it's a combination of Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window with the story of the boy who cried wolf. But instead of crying wolf, Charlie Brewster cries vampire. The practical effects are gnarly, the comedic beats blend well with the disturbing horror, and that 80s soundtrack is amazing. Best of all, the cast of characters are pretty memorable, specifically Chris Sarandon as the super sexy Jerry Dandridge. This vampire is a smooth operator. Overall, being a big fan of the old monster movies we used to watch on TV, this movie is a love letter. It's a love letter to the old AIP Hammer films of the day. And what it does so well is it blends that homage with the cool and high energy and attitude of the 80s. And that's what makes it so much fun. So I watched the Netflix original Cam, and looking at it, it's basically a mystery techno thriller about a cam girl who loses access to her account, and the AI basically takes over her social profile. And I can understand where that could be terrifying for a lot of people. And this movie deals with a lot of like social commentary, and specifically with like the adult industry. So I found that very interesting, and some of the points do work very well. And there's a lot of good suspense throughout that make it a little bit creepy and a little bit unsettling. But other than that, I thought it was a pretty tame movie, and it doesn't really give me a lot of answers, which I don't think is a problem of the film. It didn't engage me as much as I thought it would. Like I said, there's enough disturbing and creepy stuff here to make you want to finish it till the end, but to me it was more psychological than horrifying, which again isn't bad, but it wasn't really for me. So there's a reason why The Silence of the Lambs is considered a timeless horror classic. It's that damn good. Full of iconic imagery and iconic sayings, this film is full of some truly memorable sociopaths. Hannibal Lecter and Buffalo Bill have become big staples of the American consciousness, and they are absolutely terrifying because these aren't actual creature monsters, these are real life monsters that could live right next door, and you wouldn't even know. This movie reminds you of why you need to be careful when you go outside by yourself, because you never know who might be stalking you. The psychological horror is perfect, the characters are amazing, the motivations make sense, and even though it's more of that psychological horror, it's still horrifying. This is a classic film. Filmed with 16mm film, The House of the Devil is Ty West's artistic and nostalgic love letter to the subtle horror flicks of the 80s. And embracing the satanic panic of the 80s, it has elements of both your standard slasher and haunted house subgenres. I love this film for its slow pace, its retro look, and Jocelyn Donahue's performance. I love it all. Knowing that something bad is brewing for Samantha Hughes, but not knowing exactly what it is an excellent slow burn terror. Not for everyone, but definitely worth the wait. Wrong Turn has always been a guilty pleasure of mine. It's gross and it's thrilling. It's a little campy at times. It's a movie that I can put on in the background and I can watch it over and over again. And the reason for this is because, one, I'm a big fan of Eliza Dushku, especially when she was in Buffy. And then we got Quinn from Dexter in this as well. So those two already make it pretty good. And seeing them kind of have to come face to face and fight for survival against these backwoods cannibals, incest-bred monsters, it's always a lot of fun to see. The movie's very tropey, and what I mean by that, it doesn't bring anything really new to like the slasher slash stuck in the woods type movies, but it also spawned a bunch of sequels, so it must be doing something right. Overall, I think Wrong Turn proudly engages its audience in having cliche tropes, because everything you can think of is in this film. And I think that in itself is pretty special. Robert Eggers made a phenomenal piece of art with his debut film, the New England folktale, The Witch. And what can I say about this besides the fact that it's A24's best production possibly? It's dark, it's slow, it's horrendous, it's mesmerizing. Anya Taylor-Joy in this is phenomenal. The movie does a really good job of having you question what is and what is actually not happening as we watch this family slowly fall apart. It's not for everyone, I will say that. It's highly immersive and it's more nuanced horror, and it relishes in its focus on atmosphere instead of its blatant scares. And that ending is fantastic. Whenever a casual horror fan wants to get into the zombie genre, I always recommend Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. It's not my favorite zombie movie, but it's definitely one of the best. What's so cool about it is it manages to pay respect and homage to George Romero's original classic Dawn of the Dead while being something new. It reinvents and it makes it faster and stronger. The zombies are much scarier because they're relentless in their need to feed. The fact that these zombies are actually capable of unrelenting speed makes these bastards that much more scary. For someone trying to get into the zombie genre, I definitely would say start here because there's a lot of other great stuff to explore as you move forward. Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon really gave us a perfect meta horror film when they created The Cabin in the Woods. I remember seeing this in theaters and being completely floored by how funny it was, but also how careful it was in cultivating this horror product that the fans could appreciate. Upon every rewatch, I love something in it even more, and I think it's because it's one of those movies that you want to pick apart certain things, and I think it really means a lot. There's a lot going on in the film, so there's meant to be viewed multiple times, and for those of you that haven't seen it, basically this is a cabin in the woods story, and then everything goes wrong, but then something interesting happens that's completely unexpected, and it kind of just throws the whole horror trope on its head. Anything that we've learned, people need to stop reading Latin phrases from weird objects, because that just causes chaos. I highly recommend this if you have not seen it. Cabin in the Woods, fantastic. The Exorcist is such an interesting film because even though it might be considered tame by many moviegoers today, I can understand why people found it so scary back when it came out in theaters. Considered a horror classic, it still holds up, at least I think so. It has plenty of unsettling and creepy moments. I like how it gradually gets more and more demented as you go through it. And I do think this is the standard in Exorcist type stories. I think this is the blueprint 100%. If you think it's not scary, I recommend try revisiting it in the dark with all of the volume turned up by yourself in your house. I do feel it hits enough where it creates an atmospheric doom, and I think that in itself makes it worth watching again and again. I do think this is a scary movie, and it's definitely a classic in your horror collection of watching films. Definitely check it out if you haven't. So what happens when a father-son coroner team are tasked with examining and figuring out the identity of an unidentified woman? Well, Emile Hirsch and Brian Cox go through this in the IFC Midnight Classic, The Autopsy of Jane Doe. This movie is brilliant. First time I watched it, didn't know what to expect, and I got a tense and smart but focused horror film that had some really horrendous scares. The true beauty of the film lies in the unsettling mystery that rapidly erupts into a full-blown supernatural panic. The film is great at building a terrible sense of dread, and as we watch this father and son team try to unlock this mystery of who this dead woman is, things get darker and grisly and scary, and for a hometown coroner's lab, they're not equipped for this. This is a great film. If you liked Adam Wingard's You're Next, then I highly recommend the clever and darkly hilarious Ready or Not. More elegant, but just as bloody, this film is a reminder as why we need to eat the rich. Samara Weaving, she steals the show as the badass bride trying to survive a devilish game of hide and seek. Seeing her covered in blood, holding a gun, and then rocking those Converse is a look, and she definitely serves. With a surprising but welcome appearance by Adrian Brody, I absolutely love this movie because it has good humor, it has good creepy moments, and it's a run for your lives, we're all gonna kill you type of story. I think it could be rewatched endlessly. This movie is just that good. Caveat is a creepy little Irish horror film written and directed by Damien McCarthy. The film centers around this dude who agrees to look after a psychologically disturbed woman on this secluded island. What? With that, you add the element of this horrifying rabbit toy. It's just intense. On top of that, the setting is dirty and derelict. There were so many moments throughout this entire movie where your main character is agreeing to do things, and I'm just screaming to myself thinking, at what point are you just gonna say no and just say, get out of here? Because at some point you would just leave. Caveat is a great movie. You guys should definitely check it out. It is creepy beyond explanation. A Nightmare on Elm Street is Wes Craven's masterpiece. Freddy Krueger has become such an iconoclast in popular culture, and that says a lot about the actual franchise and its roots in the horror industry. But if we're just talking about the first film, then it still holds up as one of the greatest horror films of all time. And why is that? Well, one, it's rewatchable, and it stays awesome the more that you watch it. For example, the score is perfect. The nightmarish sequences are unique. The murders are crazy. Freddy Krueger as a concept is something we hadn't seen before and still holds up. In this case, where he's actually not making any jokes and just straight up killing teenagers, it's creepy, it's scary. We also get my personal favorite final girl, Nancy, and she's awesome in her own right. This movie is so good. Good, creepy, scary concept horror. Love it. House LLC is a great movie to get you both into the Halloween and the horror mood. It is a movie focused where 5 years after 15 people are killed in a mysterious haunted house attraction, basically a documentary film crew comes in to find out what actually happened. And this is one of those found footage type approach to films that when it works, it absolutely works. It is uniquely creepy, and the way that the movie weaves behind the scenes footage to basically scare the shit out of you is done very effectively. I think the best thing about this movie is the cast, because they come off as very believable in a way where you feel like you're looking at behind the scenes found footage horror. And the subtle terrors that they showcase in this movie make for a truly frightening movie. It'll make you think twice before you go to a haunted house attraction again. And now, on the 31st day of horror, on Halloween, I got to re-experience the seminal Halloween film, Trick or Treat. A delightful yarn of Halloween-centered stories. And it's perfect viewing if you've been wanting to get into the Halloween spirit. It is a bit campy, it's a lot of fun, there's good horror stories, there's good gore, and there's a lot of things going on in this little anthology movie. Filled with twists and turns, including an adorable little demon pumpkin child, this is an anthology film that really delivers. Horror films are already really fun, so being able to also incorporate Halloween into the horror makes it that much better. Definitely check this out, enjoy the stories, and let me know which ones are your favorites. Trick or Treat is great.